Most people, most normal people, love cars that sound good in some way, shape or form. And that's because, generally speaking, cars that sound good usually offer good performance. Ferraris are loud, Lamborghinis are loud, and not necessarily because they were engineered to be loud, but because sound is a byproduct of performance. That's why the Audi A3 sounds like this, and the Audi RS6 sounds like this. But cars have started to get an awful lot more quiet of late, and we can almost pinpoint the exact date when that started to happen. September the 1st, 2017. This was the date when the new Euro 6 emissions limits came into play, and what it meant was that new cars were now limited in the amount of CO2, oxides of nitrogen, and particulate matter that they could blast out of their exhausts. Now this is a good thing, don't get me wrong, we all need cleaner air, that's a fact. But what it means is that in order to reach these limits, cars had to be fitted with a special filter called a Petrol Particulate Filter, PPF, or in some places an OPF, Auto Particulate Filter, or a GPF, Gas Particulate Filter. Different acronyms for the same thing, a small watermelon-shaped filter. Some cars have one, others have two. Now, as well as capturing all the filth, PPFs also have the byproduct of capturing all that beautiful noise. Imagine my mouth is an exhaust. As I'm talking along, making a glorious noise, along comes a PPF and suddenly, sound ruined. You get the picture. But surely there's a way of bypassing the filter, right? Maybe with a switchable exhaust system that leaves the PPF working when you want it to, but also frees up the sound for when you want to drive hard. Nah, doesn't quite work like that. That used to be the case, but they've now changed the way that cars are tested for emissions, noise, and fuel economy. They've gotten rid of the old NEDC test and incorporated the new WLTP, which is a much more realistic way of testing emissions, noise, and economy. Sports cars that have to meet Euro 6 now have to be tested in their loudest possible mode. That's the new baseline, meaning the new loud mode is virtually equivalent to the old quiet mode. No pops, no bangs, no screaming, no fun. Pretty much everything with a well-known badge will now have to be Euro 6 compliant, meaning anything that you expect that might make a decent noise might not ever sound as good as it used to. At this particular moment in time, there are a couple of noteworthy exceptions. Lamborghini have somehow gotten away with not having to install PPFs on their car, but the next generation of Lamborghinis are very likely to have a hybrid powertrain or a PPF or a combination of both. As for Ferrari, well, the Ferrari F8 Tributo was the first ever prancing horse to be fitted with a petrol particulate filter, and the same will apply to the forthcoming 812 GTS. Bentley's, GPF. Audi R8, GPF. In fact, Volkswagen as an entire group have decided that all cars fitted with their TFI or TFSI engines will be fitted with a petrol particulate filter. They're not taking any chances post-diesel. Can't really blame them. So is it a completely lost cause for performance cars? Well, maybe not. If you'd watched my review of the Jaguar F-Type R, then you'll know exactly how good that car sounds.
Sounds like a dinosaur gargling a bag full of hand grenades.
How have Jaguar managed to achieve this and cheated the system? Well, it's not really cheating. I spoke to a Jaguar engineer and he told me that V8s just sound inherently good. So even though their cars now have a PPF, they still sound decent. Plus, they've paid attention to the exhaust. They've tuned the exhaust meticulously to make sure it sounds as good as it possibly can, despite the filter. The same goes for Ferrari, for example, who are working super hard to try and preserve their engine note. For example, the forthcoming Ferrari Roma does have a filter, but they've removed the rear silencer in order to maintain as robust a sound as they possibly can. The F8 Tributo, meanwhile, has extra intake noise pumped into the cabin, and the net effect of that is that the interior is now 5 decibels louder than the Ferrari 488 GTB at medium to high revs. Still doesn't sound quite as good though, does it? But surely there must be a way around this, maybe with an aftermarket exhaust. Maybe you could get rid of the PPF by fitting a brand new one. Yeah, again, not that simple. You see, the problem is it's technically illegal to modify your car to make a louder noise after it's been type approved. You can change the tone, but you can't exceed the maximum volume threshold of 74 decibels. Of course, this has massive implications not only for the noise, but also for tuning your car for more performance. The old technique of adding an air filter, an engine tune, and a new exhaust could be pretty much out the window. But at least we can still change the tone. How do you go about doing that? Well, you could change the downpipe, but again, because the downpipe flows directly into the gas particulate filter, that's not really going to help too much. So how about changing the mid-pipe? Remove the mid-pipe with the GPF for a more free-flowing unit. Word on the street is that people have been trying this with some fairly terrible results, resulting in their cars going into limp mode. And again, you do fall foul of the possibility of failing your MOT or getting in trouble with the law. So perhaps your only realistic option is to change the back box, and there are loads of aftermarket solutions out there where you can actually remove your old silencer, slip on a new one, and the whole car will sound absolutely fantastic. It won't help your performance in any way, but at least it will sound decent. But again, you have to be careful. If your car exceeds the maximum 74 decibel volume threshold, then the police could be on your tail. There's also the very real question of whether it's even worth changing your exhaust in the first place. Most of us buy our cars using a lease, and on most leases, making modifications to your car is completely illegal, meaning a lot of us are just going to be stuck with the factory tune. So it looks like the end of an era for decent sounding exhausts as we know it. With more and more electric cars being introduced and more petrol cars not sounding anywhere near as good as they used to, we run the risk of the baseline of acceptability being changed completely. Now, people won't even remember what old school cars used to sound like in the good old days. So it now looks like the end of an era for loud exhausts. With more and more electric cars coming into play and more petrol cars not sounding anywhere near as good as they used to, the baseline for what makes a good sounding exhaust is gonna drop. And that's just half the story, because in 2020 and beyond, there's a whole other set of regulations that mean that 74 decibel limit for noise is gonna drop. That's right, cars are gonna get even quieter. Yeah, sad times, brace yourself. Right, if you enjoyed this video, drop me a comment down below. Also make sure you hit like, subscribe, and also that bell notification icon to make sure you don't miss any of our videos. And I'll see you again soon.